June 15th, 1800. 3:30 in the afternoon. Napoleon Bonaparte is losing. His soldiers are retreating in panic, throwing away muskets and packs as they stumble backward through fields of wheat and corn. His generals are suggesting a full withdrawal to the Po River. In a few hours, the man who crossed the Alps in one of the boldest marches in history will be captured or killed on this scorching Italian plain. The consulate, created just 6 months ago through a daring coup, will end in humiliation. The enemies of the revolution will return. France will sue for peace on Austria's terms. Everything Napoleon has fought for will collapse into dust. Around him, the sounds of disaster. Wounded men screaming for water. Officers shouting contradictory orders. The relentless boom of Austrian artillery pounding his retreating army without mercy. The acrid smell of gunpowder mixes with the metallic scent of blood and the stench of terrified horses. Napoleon sits motionless on his gray mare, Marengo. His face shows nothing, but those who know him see the slight tremor in his hands, the way his jaw clenches. This is fear, real fear. The kind that comes when you realize you've made a catastrophic mistake and there's no way to undo it. He divided his forces, sent General Desaix south with 2 divisions yesterday. Desaix could be 12 miles away, or 15, or 20. He doesn't know. Communication has broken down. The battlefield is chaos. But then, through the dust cloud rising from the road to San Giuliano, someone shouts 3 words that change everything. Desaix is coming. Napoleon's head snaps up. He stands in his stirrups, straining to see through the smoke and dust. And there, like an apparition, a column of blue-coated infantry emerges, marching in perfect formation, battle flags flying, 5,000 men who shouldn't be here, can't be here, but are. At their head, mounted on a white horse that seems to glow in the afternoon sun, is General Louis Desaix. 31. Years old, one of Napoleon's most brilliant commanders, the man who held Egypt, the general who never lost a battle, Napoleon's friend. In the next 2 hours, one of the most stunning reversals in military history will unfold. A lost battle will transform into a crushing victory. One man will die at the moment of his greatest triumph. An empire will be saved by a margin so thin it can be measured in minutes, and Napoleon Bonaparte will become legend. This is the story of the Battle of Marengo, a story of desperation and sacrifice, of terrible mistakes and incredible courage, of luck and determination, of the 2 hours that saved an empire and changed the world, because if Napoleon loses here today, there is no French Empire, no Austerlitz, no Jena, no Moscow. History takes a completely different path. Everything depends on what happens next. June 14th, 1800. Dawn breaks over the Lombard plain. Napoleon Bonaparte wakes in his command tent near the village of Torre di Garofoli. He's been awake most of the night, poring over maps by candlelight, trying to divine where General Melas and the Austrian army have gone. It's been 6 days since the victory at Montebello. 6 days of marching, searching, probing. But the main Austrian force remains elusive. Napoleon is 30 years old. In the past 5 years, he's become the most famous soldier in Europe. His Italian campaign of 1796 made him a hero. His Egyptian expedition, despite its ultimate failure, only added to his legend. And his coup last November, the overthrow of the corrupt Directory, made him master of France. But military glory is fleeting. Political power even more so. He knows that if he doesn't win a decisive victory here in Italy, and win it soon, the vultures will circle. The politicians in Paris, the generals who resent his youth and success, the royalists who want the Bourbons back. They're all waiting for him to fail. He cannot fail. After his brilliant crossing of the Alps through the Great St. Bernard Pass, after the capture of Milan and the relief operations, Napoleon needs one thing: a battle. A crushing, undeniable victory that will force Austria to the negotiating table. a victory that will make his position as first consul unassailable. But first, he has to find the enemy. His forces are dangerously spread across the Lombard plain. It's a calculated risk. General Desaix commands 2 divisions, nearly 5,000 men, marching south toward Novi. Napoleon sent him there yesterday with orders to block any Austrian retreat toward Genoa. General Lapoipe guards the Po River crossings to the north with another 4,000. The bulk of Napoleon's army, about 28,000 men under Generals Victor and Lannes, is concentrated near the village of Marengo. It's a textbook dispersion strategy. Cover all the escape routes, pin the enemy, force them to fight. Except Napoleon has made a critical assumption. He believes Melas will try to escape, try to run east toward the fortress of Mantua, where he can regroup, behind strong walls and await reinforcements from Vienna. It's what Napoleon would do in Melas's position. It's the smart move, the safe move. But the 71-year-old Austrian general has other ideas. What Napoleon doesn't know, what he cannot know because his cavalry reconnaissance has been mediocre and his intelligence network is stretched thin, is that 5 miles to the west, in the fortified city of Alessandria, 31,000 Austrian soldiers are preparing for battle. General Michael von Melas is old, but he's not timid. He's fought in a dozen wars. He's been a soldier since before Napoleon was born. And right now, he's angry. Angry that this upstart Corsican has invaded Italy again. Angry that the French have humiliated Austria repeatedly. Angry that he's being maneuvered like a chess piece. So Melas has made his decision. No retreat. No clever stratagems. Tomorrow at dawn he will attack. He will smash through the French center, break out to the east, and end this campaign in one decisive, brutal blow. His staff officers have prepared meticulous plans. 3 massive columns will advance at first light. The French, spread thin and off balance, will be overwhelmed by superior numbers and firepower. By noon, Melas believes, he'll be dictating surrender terms to Napoleon Bonaparte. It's a good plan. Aggressive. Bold. Everything that the elderly Melas's reputation doesn't suggest. And Napoleon has absolutely no idea it's coming. As the sun rises on June 14th, Napoleon still believes he's hunting the Austrians. In reality, they're preparing to pounce on him. He's walked into a trap of his own making. His forces are divided. His best general, Desaix, is marching in the wrong direction. And in less than 24 hours, he'll be fighting for his life. This is the context that makes Marengo so extraordinary. Napoleon, the military genius, has made a fundamental error. He's misjudged his opponent completely, and he's about to pay for it with the lives of thousands of his soldiers. But he doesn't know that yet. As the morning of June 14th unfolds, Napoleon orders his army to prepare for another day of marching, another day of searching. He has no idea that the next dawn will bring hell. Before we continue this story, a quick request. If you're enjoying this so far and want more people to know this fascinating story, help the channel grow with a like. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe and hit the notification bell. It really helps me continue bringing this content. All right, let's get back to June 15th, 1800. June 15th, 6 o'clock in the morning. The sun rises over the Marengo plain, blood-red and ominous. It's going to be another scorcher. By mid-morning, temperatures will reach 90 degrees Fahrenheit, the kind of heat that turns uniforms into ovens and makes men hallucinate after hours of fighting. General Claude Victor's division holds the French front line, about 8,000 men stretched thin across a 2-mile front. They occupy the village of Marengo itself, a small farming community of stone houses and narrow streets. To the south, his troops hold several farms, including the fortified position at Casina Bianca. To the north, more detachments guard the road to Alessandria. It's a decent defensive position. The terrain is relatively flat, open farmland broken by irrigation ditches, vineyards, and the occasional stand of trees. The Fontenone stream runs through the center, providing a natural obstacle. Not much, but something. Victor's men are tired. They've been marching and fighting for weeks, but they're veterans. Most fought in the Italian campaigns of 1796 and 1797. They know their business, they trust their officers, and they trust Victor, a brave and capable commander who leads from the front. Behind Victor's line, about a mile to the east, General Jean Lannes waits with his division. Another 7,000 men. Lannes is one of Napoleon's finest generals, aggressive, fearless, the kind of man who charges toward danger instead of away from it. His division is the reserve, ready to plug any gaps or exploit any Austrian mistakes. The men are preparing breakfast. Coffee when they can get it, though most are drinking water mixed with wine. Hard campaign bread, dry and tasteless but filling. Some are writing letters home, balanced on their knees. Others clean their muskets, checking flints and powder for the 100th time. The old soldiers, the ones who've seen too many battles, sit quietly and smoke their pipes, savoring what might be their last peaceful moment. Nobody expects an attack. The prevailing assumption is that the Austrians are still holed up in Alessandria, licking their wounds after Montebello. Or maybe they've already begun retreating east. Either way, today will probably be another day of marching, searching, waiting. They're wrong. At 8 o'clock, the world explodes. 30 Austrian cannons open fire simultaneously. The sound is beyond description. Imagine thunder, but continuous, rolling, never-ending. The ground shakes. Windows in Marengo village shatter. Birds rise from trees in terrified clouds. The first French soldiers to die don't even hear the cannonballs that kill them. Iron spheres weighing 6, 12, 18 pounds smash through ranks of infantry. One ball can kill 5 men in a row, decapitate 3, remove limbs from 2 more. It's brutal, impersonal, the democracy of death. Within seconds, French artillery begins responding, but they're outnumbered, and they're shooting at targets they can barely see through the morning haze and the smoke already filling the air. Then, emerging from that smoke like ghosts, come the Austrian infantry, 3 massive columns, each one 3,000 men wide. White coats, black shakos, muskets at the shoulder, marching in perfect step to the beat of drums. The sunlight glints off thousands of bayonets. It's beautiful and terrible at the same time. General Anton von Hadek commands the right column, advancing north of Marengo. General Peter Keim leads the center, aimed straight at the village. General Maximilian O'Reilly brings the left column, sweeping around the southern flank toward Cascina Bianca. Behind them all, in reserve, General Karl Ott's corps waits. Another 12,000 fresh troops, the same Ott who fought at Montebello 6 days ago. It's overwhelming force. 31,000 Austrians against maybe 8,000 Frenchmen in the first line. Nearly 4-to-1 odds. Any military textbook says the defender doesn't have a chance. But the French don't run, not yet. General Victor immediately grasps the magnitude of what's happening. This isn't a probe. This isn't a skirmish. This is the entire goddamn Austrian army, and they're coming to kill him. He sends an urgent galloper to Napoleon, who's still at Torre di Garofoli, 6 miles east. The message is brief and desperate. Under massive attack. This is everything. Need reinforcements immediately. Then Victor turns to his staff. Gentlemen, we're going to hold this position until the first consul arrives, no matter what it costs. The Battle of Marengo has begun, and in the next 6 hours, it will push the French army to the absolute breaking point and beyond. The Austrians attack with methodical ferocity. These aren't the stereotype of slow mechanical troops. They're professionals, well-trained, well-led, and they know how to fight. In the village of Marengo, it becomes a nightmare. House-to-house fighting, room to room, French infantry barricade. Themselves in stone buildings and fire from windows. Austrians batter down doors with musket butts and storm inside. Men stab each other with bayonets in narrow hallways where there's no room to reload. The church, dominating the village center, changes hands 3 times in 90 minutes. Bodies pile up in the pews. Blood runs down the stone steps. A French lieutenant named Bernard later writes in his journal, "I saw things in Marengo village that will haunt me until I die. Men fighting with broken bottles. Austrians and French, so covered in blood you couldn't tell which was which. The screaming was worse than the shooting. Outside the village, in the open fields, the situation deteriorates even faster. Austrian cavalry, uhlans, and dragoons sweep around the French flanks like wolves circling wounded prey. Victor's men form defensive squares, presenting walls of bayonets to the charging horsemen. It's the classic infantry defense against cavalry, and it works. The horses won't. Charge into a solid wall of men, but forming square makes you vulnerable to artillery. And the Austrians have a lot of artillery. Their guns pound the French squares mercilessly. Solid shot bounces through formations like bowling balls through pins. Men torn in half, arms and legs flying. The squares shrink, tighten, some start to waver. A French sergeant named Coignet, who survives the battle and writes a famous memoir, describes it. The cannonballs came at us like horizontal rain. You could see them coming if you were lucky, black dots getting bigger. Most men tried not to look. When a ball hit the square, it made a sound like a butcher's cleaver hitting a side of beef. Wet. Final. You didn't look at your neighbor after, just closed ranks and kept going. By 9:30, Victor's line is crumbling. The village of Marengo is half lost. The farms are contested. His men are exhausted, running low on ammunition, their formations shredded by 6,000 Austrian musket balls per minute. Victor sends another message to Napoleon. This one doesn't mince words. Cannot hold much longer. Where are you? At 10 o'clock, Napoleon finally arrives. He's ridden hard from Torre di Garofoli, his famous gray mare lathered with sweat. His small escort of guides' cavalry struggles to keep up. When Napoleon crests the low ridge east of the battlefield and sees the scope of the disaster, he goes pale. The entire Austrian army, right here, right now, and he has barely a third of his own forces on the field. Marshal Louis Alexandre Berthier, Napoleon's chief of staff and the man who organized the legendary Alpine crossing, rides beside him. Berthier is normally unflappable, but even he looks shaken. "Where is Desaix?" Napoleon asks. His voice is quiet but tight with tension. "Still marching south, sir," Berthier replies, "following the orders you gave yesterday." For just a moment, Napoleon closes his eyes. He sent Desaix away, split his forces, walked into this with his eyes wide shut. It's the worst tactical error of his career, and it's happening in real time with thousands of men about to die because of it. But there's no time for self-recrimination, no time for regrets. The only thing that matters now is survival. "Send riders after Desaix," Napoleon orders. "Fast riders. Tell him to turn around immediately and force march back here. Tell him—" Napoleon pauses, choosing his words carefully. "Tell him we need him." Then he turns to the immediate crisis. Order. Lannes to advance. Support Victor's right flank. We have to buy time. "How much time, sir?" "As much as it takes for Desaix to get here. And if Desaix doesn't make it in time?" Napoleon doesn't answer, because they both know what happens then. General Jean Lannes receives his orders and doesn't hesitate. He's 31 years old, the same age as Desaix, and one of Napoleon's most trusted commanders. In the Italian campaigns, he led the famous charge across the bridge of Arcole, following Napoleon. Into what should have been certain death, he's a fighter, always has been. "Division forward!" Lannes roars. "Double time!" 7,000 fresh French troops charge into the inferno. They crash into the Austrian center near Casina Bianca, bayonets leveled, drums beating the pas de charge. For a moment, a brief, glorious moment, the Austrian advance stops. Lannes is everywhere, on horseback, waving his hat, shouting encouragement. His men would follow him into hell. Today, they do. But it's not enough. It can't be enough. The Austrians are too many, too strong, too determined. Within 90 minutes, Lannes' division is as battered as Victor's. His men have taken 40% casualties. Some units have lost half their strength. The survivors are fighting on pure courage and muscle memory, loading and firing without conscious thought, their minds gone numb from the horror. By 11 o'clock, both French divisions are being pushed back, slowly, fighting every inch, but back, always back. Marengo village falls completely to the Austrians. The tricolor flag is torn down from the church and replaced with the black and yellow of Austria. Casina Bianca farm is overrun. The French are now fighting a mile east of their starting positions, a mile closer to Catastrophic. General Melas, watching from a hilltop near Alessandria, allows himself a rare smile. He's 71 years old. He's been fighting wars since 1746. He's seen everything, and what he sees now is victory, clear, undeniable. The French are broken. In a few more hours, he'll be accepting Napoleon Bonaparte's surrender, or his body. Send word to Vienna, Melas tells an aide. The battle is won. It's the second biggest mistake any commander makes this day. At noon, under a sun now directly overhead and merciless, the French situation becomes catastrophic. The temperature has climbed past 95 degrees. Men are collapsing from heat stroke. Uniforms, soaked with sweat and blood, cling to bodies. The wounded lie in the fields, crying for water that isn't coming. Some French soldiers, their canteens long empty, are drinking from puddles contaminated with blood. Others aren't drinking at all, too exhausted even for that. General François Kellermann the Elder, father of the younger Kellermann, who will soon play such a crucial role, commands what's left of the French cavalry. About 3,000 horsemen, already depleted by morning skirmishes. He approaches Napoleon with a desperate plan. "Let me charge their center," Kellermann says. "Buy you time to reorganize." Napoleon looks at the old general. Kellermann is 65 years old. He won the Battle of Valmy 8 years ago, the victory that saved the revolution. He's a hero, a legend, and he's volunteering for what will probably be a suicide mission. "Do it," Napoleon says quietly. Kellermann salutes, rides back to his cavalry. Within 10 minutes, 3,000 French horsemen form up in a massive column. Dragoons, cuirassiers, even the guides Napoleon's personal escort. Everyone who can sit a horse and hold a saber. They charge. It's magnificent, glorious, doomed. 3,000 horses at full gallop, the earth shaking beneath their hooves, sabers raised, men screaming war cries that are equal parts defiance and terror. They crash into the Austrian center like a meteor striking the earth. For 90 seconds, it works. The Austrian infantry, caught mid-advance, reels back. Some units break. Gaps appear in their line. The French cavalry slashes through. Sabers, rising and falling. Horses trampling. Chaos spreading. But then Austrian artillery wheels around. Double-loaded canister shot. Essentially giant shotgun blasts of metal balls, tears through the French cavalry at point-blank range. Horses go down screaming. Riders fly through the air. The charge falters, stops, breaks apart. Kellermann himself is unhorsed. His favorite mount, a gray stallion he's ridden for 5 years, is shot out from under him. He hits the ground hard, the wind knocked from his lungs. His aides drag him to safety, but the charge is over. Of 3,000 cavalry who charged, barely 2,500 make it back. The rest are dead, wounded, or captured. Their sacrifice buys Napoleon exactly 20 minutes. 20 minutes to fall back another half-mile. 20 minutes closer to complete disaster. The survivors straggle back in small groups, their horses blown, their spirit broken. One cuirassier, his breastplate dented by a cannonball that should have killed him but somehow didn't, sits on his exhausted horse and weeps openly. Nobody mocks him. They're all thinking the same thing. This is the end. Napoleon's army is now in full retreat, not an organized withdrawal, a rout. Soldiers are throwing away their weapons, their packs, anything that slows them down. They're running east, toward the village of San Giuliano, toward safety, toward anywhere that isn't here. Officers are shouting, trying to restore order, but panic is a living thing. It spreads, infects. Soon, entire battalions are streaming to the rear. Some units maintain discipline, forming small squares that retreat in good order, still facing the enemy. But they're islands in a sea of chaos. Napoleon rides among them, trying to rally his men. "Stand fast! Form on your colors! The battle isn't lost!" But even Napoleon's legendary charisma can't stop this tide. The soldiers who hear him look away, ashamed but unwilling to die. The ones who don't hear him just keep running. General Berthier, ever loyal, approaches. Napoleon one more time. His face is grave. "Sir, we need to consider withdrawing to the Po. Regroup there. Fight another day." Napoleon stares at the battlefield. Smoke and dust reduced visibility to a few hundred yards, thousands of his men streaming past in disorder. The Austrian army, confident and organized, advancing relentlessly. He knows Berthier is right. Tactically, strategically, it's the smart move. But politically, it's suicide. If he retreats now, if he admits defeat, the consulate falls. The politicians in Paris will smell blood. The royalists will rise. The generals will plot. Everything he's built in the last 7 months will collapse. More than that, though, it's personal. Napoleon has never lost a major battle. Never. Lodi, Arcole, Rivoli, the pyramids. He's built his entire reputation on being the general who wins, always. The man who does the impossible. If he loses here, that aura shatters. And once that aura is gone, it never comes back. "No," Napoleon says, and his voice is hard as iron. "We hold. Desaix will come." But even as he says it, doubt gnaws at him. Desaix is 12 miles away, maybe 15. The messenger he sent this morning might not have found him. Or Desaix might have decided the orders didn't make sense, that marching back toward the sound of battle was suicide. Or he might be force-marching his men and still be hours away. Too late. Always too late. Napoleon doesn't know. Can't know. All he can do is hope. And buy time. More time. Lanna's divisions stagger into San Giuliano. Maybe 12,000 men still in fighting condition. Out of the 15,000 who started the day. 3,000 casualties in 6 hours. Dead, wounded, missing, or simply run away. The units are mixed together, chains of command broken. Everyone exhausted and demoralized. Napoleon positions them personally. This battalion here. Those guns there. Cavalry on the flanks. He's everywhere, his energy inexhaustible even when everyone else is spent. Some soldiers later swear he was in 3 places at once. He wasn't. But he moved so fast, spoke to so many men, that it seemed like magic. "One more stand, men," he tells them. "Just one more. Hold here, and we win. I promise you." It's a lie. He knows it's a lie. They probably know it's a lie. But sometimes lies are all you have. At 1 o'clock, the Austrian pursuit reaches San Giuliano. General Anton Zach, Melas's chief of staff, now commands the Austrian advance. Melas himself, exhausted by the morning's exertions and certain of victory, has ridden back to Alessandria. He wants a hot meal and a comfortable bed. He'll accept Napoleon's surrender tomorrow morning, after a good night's sleep. It's the first of several catastrophic Austrian mistakes. Melas has removed himself from the battlefield at the critical moment. Left Zach, a competent but not brilliant officer, in charge. And Zach, flush with victory and eager to finish the job, makes his own mistakes. He has 15,000 relatively fresh troops at his disposal. The French have 12,000 exhausted ones. He has momentum, morale, and the smell of victory. He should attack immediately. Overwhelming force. End it now. Instead, he pauses, lets his men rest, redistribute ammunition, close up the ranks. All the things that make sense to a careful, methodical officer. But in war, hesitation kills, and this hesitation, this hour of pause, will cost Austria everything. Because 12 miles to the south, General Louis Desaix has just heard the sound of cannon fire, and he's already turning his corps around. This story gets even more intense from here. If you're following along and want more people to know this story, share this video. Send it to that friend who loves real historical conspiracies. And leave in the comments, what would you do in Napoleon's position? I want to know your opinion. Let's continue. At 3 o'clock, Austrian General Zach finally orders his advance guard forward. The pause is over. Time to finish the French and end this campaign. His troops move east toward San Giuliano in good order, battle-tested, confident. They've been pushing the French back for 7 hours. One more push, and it's over. The French wait behind their hasty barricades. 12,000 exhausted men. Most are out of ammunition, or nearly so. They've fixed bayonets. When the Austrians come, it will be hand-to-hand. Brutal. Final. Napoleon sits on his horse behind the line, watching, waiting, praying to a god he doesn't believe in that Desaix. Will arrive, and then someone shouts, points south. "Column approaching!" Every eye turns. Through the dust and smoke and shimmering heat, a column of infantry appears, marching fast, flags flying, 5,000 men who shouldn't be here, but are. At their head, on a white horse, General Louis Desaix. Napoleon rides forward to meet him at full gallop. The two generals clasp hands. Napoleon's eyes are wet. He doesn't care who sees. "Louis," he says. Just that. Just the name. Desaix looks at the battlefield, the retreating French, the advancing Austrians, the chaos. He understands everything in seconds. He's always been able to do that, see the whole picture instantly. "This battle is lost," Desaix says calmly, "but there is time to win another." It's 3:15 in the afternoon. The sun is still high. There are at least 3 hours of daylight left. Time enough. Just barely. "What do you need?" Napoleon asks. 30 minutes to position my men. Then we attack. The Austrians outnumber us." Desaix smiles. It's a tired smile. A soldier's smile. They always do. Napoleon issues rapid orders. Desaix will form his division for attack on the Austrian center. Young General Kellermann, commanding the remaining cavalry, will position on the flank. Victor and Lannes will reorganize their shattered divisions and provide support. It's a desperate plan. One final gamble, but it's better than surrender. Desaix doesn't waste time. He rides to his men. They've been running for hours. They're dead on their feet, but they're here. They made it. "Soldiers," Desaix tells them, "we've marched all day. Now we fight. One attack. Everything we have. For France." The men cheer. It's a ragged cheer, hoarse and tired. But it's real. At 4 o'clock, Desaix gives the order. "Forward!" 5,000 men begin to advance, not running, not charging, just walking forward in perfect formation, drums beating, officers calling cadence. It's almost parade ground perfect, almost beautiful. The Austrians, confident in their victory and already celebrating, are surprised. Some units are looting French baggage. Others have broken ranks to rest. Nobody expects a French attack. Not now. Not after 7 hours of defeat. Desaix's column crashes into them like a hammer. The fighting is savage and immediate. No fancy tactics, no clever maneuvers, just brutal, close-range combat. Musket volleys at 50 yards. Bayonet charges through the smoke. Men killing each other in the brutal arithmetic of infantry. Battle. Desaix is everywhere. On his white horse, impossible to miss, directing his men, inspiring them. He's been in battle dozens of times. Egypt, Syria, Italy. He knows this is different. This is everything. The Austrian advance stops. For the first time all day, they're not moving forward. Desaix's fresh troops have created a crisis in their center, but the Austrians recover quickly. General Zach commits his reserves. Fresh battalions wheel and advance. Soon Desaix's division is surrounded on 3 sides. The attack is stalling, slowing, about to break. And then, at 4:30, disaster strikes. General Desaix, leading from the front, is hit. A musket ball to the chest. He falls from his white horse, gone in an instant. His men carry him to the rear. He's still conscious, but fading fast, blood soaking his uniform. He knows he's dying. "Don't tell the men," he gasps. "Tell them to win." 3 minutes later, Louis Desaix is dead. 31 years old. One of France's finest generals. Napoleon's friend. Gone. News spreads through the French ranks, but instead of breaking morale, it enrages them. These men loved Desaix. He marched with them, ran with them, led them here to save the army. Now he's dead, and someone will pay. The French attack doesn't stop. It intensifies, becomes something primal and terrible. Officers lose control. The men just keep advancing, keep firing, keep killing. It's no longer about tactics. It's about revenge. We're reaching the most crucial moment of this story. If you're not subscribed yet, now is the time. I make videos like this every week. Now let's see how this ends. 4:45 in the afternoon. The Austrian center has stopped Desaix's advance. But something is wrong. General Zach can feel it. His troops are bunched up, mixed together. Cavalry, infantry, artillery, all compressed on a narrow front. They think they've won. Some are already looting. Officers are dismounted. The formation is a mess. And then young General Kellermann commanding. The French heavy cavalry sees his chance. 400 horsemen. All that's left of the French cavalry. They've been waiting behind a farmhouse on the Austrian flank. Kellermann is 25 years old, son of the famous marshal. He spent all day watching the battle, waiting for this moment. Now he has it. "Heavy cavalry!" he shouts. "Charge!" 400 horses explode from behind the farm at full gallop. They hit the Austrian flank like a thunderbolt. The Austrians never see it coming. One moment, victory. The next, French cavalry among them, sabers flashing, horses trampling, men screaming. Panic spreads instantly. Austrian units break and run. Others try to form defensive squares, but it's too late. The cavalry is already through their lines, killing, scattering, creating chaos. And then lightning strikes. An Austrian ammunition caisson, carrying powder and shells, is hit. Nobody knows exactly how. A stray musket ball, a sparking horseshoe. An act of God. It explodes. The blast is, enormous. A fireball 50 feet high. The shock wave knocks men down 100 yards away. Dozens of Austrians die instantly. Hundreds more are wounded. But worse than the casualties is the psychological impact. The Austrian soldiers believe the French have brought up secret artillery, or that fate itself has turned against them. The center of their army begins to collapse. General Zach desperately tries to restore order. "Hold! We're winning! Hold your positions!" But it's too late. Panic is contagious. Units that fought bravely all day suddenly break. Men throw down their weapons and run. The advance becomes a retreat. The retreat becomes a rout. Napoleon sees the breakthrough and doesn't hesitate. "Everyone forward, now! Drive them!" The entire French army surges forward. Victor's battered division, Land's exhausted men, every soldier who can still stand. They charge the wavering Austrians with everything they have left. The Austrians try to retreat in order. But the roads are clogged. Units are mixed. Command has broken down. The retreat becomes a stampede. By 6 o'clock, the Austrian army is in full flight back to Alessandria. They've lost 9,000 men killed, wounded, or captured, including General Zach himself, captured still trying to rally his troops. The French have lost 6,000, including the irreplaceable Desaix, but they've won, against all odds. from the jaws of defeat. Napoleon stands on the battlefield as the sun sets. Around him, exhausted soldiers cheer. Vive Bonaparte! Vive la France! But Napoleon isn't celebrating. He's staring south, toward where Desaix fell. What a loss, he says quietly. June 16th, morning. General Melas rides from Alessandria under a flag of truce. The old general is broken. Yesterday morning he was writing victory dispatches. Now he's asking for terms. Napoleon receives him with respect. This is the moment to be generous, to turn military victory into political triumph. The Convention of Alessandria is signed that afternoon. Austria evacuates all of Lombardy and Piedmont, surrendering northern Italy to France. In exchange, Napoleon allows the Austrian army to march out with honor. Flags flying, weapons carried. It's brilliant politics. Melas returns to Vienna and recommends peace. The Second Coalition crumbles. By December, Austria signs the Treaty of Luneville, confirming French dominance of Italy. The victory doesn't just save Napoleon's military reputation. It transforms his political position. He's no longer just first consul. He's the savior of France. Within 2 years, consul for life. 2 years after that, emperor. But none of that would have been possible without June 15th, 1800. Without Desaix's march. Without Kellermann's charge. Without that exploding ammunition caisson. Without 2 hours that changed everything. General Louis Desaix was buried with full honors in Milan. Napoleon attended personally. He was devastated. Desaix was more than a brilliant general. He was a friend. Napoleon later said, "I would give all my victories to have Desaix back." Whether he actually said it or not, the sentiment was real. On St. Helena, Napoleon listed Desaix among the 3 greatest generals he ever knew. Young Kellermann became a marshal of the empire. He served Napoleon 15 more years, but he never achieved anything as glorious as those 5 minutes at Marengo. Today, over 220 years later, Marengo remains one of the most studied battles in military history, not for brilliant tactics, but for its raw drama. Its impossible turnaround. Military historians debate endlessly. What if Desaix arrived an hour later? What if the caisson hadn't exploded? What if Melas stayed on the battlefield? Any of those changes, and Napoleon loses. The consulate falls. France sues for peace. European history takes a completely different path. But Desaix did arrive, the caisson did explode, and Napoleon won by the narrowest of margins. There's controversy about Napoleon's official account. His bulletins told a different story. In his version, he was never in danger. He deliberately drew the Austrians into a trap. Desaix's arrival was all part of the plan. It was propaganda. Everyone who fought at Marengo knew the truth, but Napoleon controlled the narrative. For years, his version appeared in history books. Only later, when veterans published their memoirs, did the real story emerge. The mistakes, the panic, the near disaster, the luck. But that makes the victory even more impressive. Not because Napoleon planned everything perfectly, but because he and his army recovered from catastrophic errors, kept fighting when everything seemed lost, turned defeat into triumph through determination and courage. That's the real lesson of Marengo. Not perfect planning, not brilliant tactics, but resilience. The refusal to give up. The ability to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, and the sacrifice of men like Desaix, who marched toward the sound of guns, who led from the front, who gave everything for their country and their friend. This was the story of the Battle of Marengo, a story of desperation and triumph, of mistakes and miracles, of one man who died in victory and another who built an empire on that sacrifice. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Leave in the comments. Was Napoleon lucky or brilliant at Marengo? I want to know what you think. Next week, I'll tell the story of the disaster that almost destroyed Napoleon's empire before it began. It's even more dramatic. Until then, some battles echo forever. I want to know your opinion. Let's continue. 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 12 miles south of the battlefield, General Louis Charles Antoine Desaix hears something that makes him stop his horse mid-stride. Thunder. Except the sky is cloudless, blue and pitiless and hot as a forge. It's not thunder, it's artillery. Dozens of guns, maybe hundreds. The deep rolling boom that means a major battle is underway, from the north, from exactly where Napoleon and the main army should be. Desaix is 31 years old. Born to minor nobility, he joined the army at 15 and has spent half his life at war. He's not tall, not imposing physically. Some might even call him plain. But his mind is sharp as a bayonet, and his courage is absolute. He's the kind of general soldiers would follow into fire. He spent the last 2 years in Egypt fighting under Napoleon in that strange, doomed adventure. He held Upper Egypt with 3,000 men against 20,000. Mamluks. He explored ancient ruins and wrote poetry. He became friends with the local sheikhs and learned Arabic. And when Napoleon left Egypt secretly in August 1799, Desaix stayed behind, holding the line until the British-Turkish attack made the position untenable. He escaped during a temporary armistice, made his way across the Mediterranean despite British warships, reached France in March 1800, and immediately sought out Napoleon, not for glory, not for advancement, because Napoleon was his friend and his friend needed help. Napoleon gave him 2 divisions, the 6th Light and the 9th Line, about 5,000 men, mostly veterans of the Italian campaigns, good troops, steady. Yesterday, Napoleon ordered him to march south toward Novi, to block any Austrian retreat in that direction. But Desaix has been uneasy about those orders from the start. Something feels wrong. Napoleon is concentrating the army near Marengo, but spreading out divisions to cover potential escape routes. It makes sense on a map. But maps don't fight battles. Men do. And dividing your force in the face of an enemy whose exact location is unknown is asking for trouble. Still, Desaix is a soldier. He follows orders. His 2 divisions have been marching since dawn, covering the hot roads south. But now, hearing that distant artillery, every instinct he has is screaming that those orders are wrong. "Halt the column," Desaix orders. His chief of staff, General Jean-Antoine Boudet, rides up. "Sir?" You hear, "That?" Boudet listens, nods. "Artillery, north, heavy engagement." The first consul didn't mention planning a battle today. "No, sir." Desaix sits on his horse listening to the guns, trying to calculate distance, time, risk. If he ignores those orders and marches toward the sound of battle, and it turns out to be a minor skirmish, Napoleon will be furious at the insubordination. If he continues south as ordered, and Napoleon is fighting a major battle without him, Desaix will never forgive himself. It's the kind of decision that defines a military career. Follow orders and maybe be wrong, or trust your instincts and definitely disobey. Louis Desaix trusts his instincts. "We're turning around," he announces. "The first consul needs us." His officers exchange glances. A few look worried. Disobeying direct orders from Napoleon Bonaparte is career suicide. But Desaix's face is set. He's decided. And more importantly, he's probably right. "How long to reach the battlefield?" Desaix asks Boudet. Boudet does quick mental calculations. "Distance, 12 miles, maybe 13. The men are already tired from this morning's march. At normal pace, 4 hours, maybe 5. We don't have 5 hours. Whatever's happening up there, it's happening now." Desaix pauses, listening again to the guns. The sound is continuous, unbroken. That means sustained combat, major engagement. "We march at the quick step, and we don't stop until we get there." The quick step. Not quite a run, but faster than a normal march. Brutal in this heat. Men will collapse. Some might die. But if Napoleon is fighting the entire Austrian army, if he's outnumbered and desperate, then speed matters more than anything. Pass the word, Desaix orders. We're marching to battle, double time. Tell the men General Bonaparte needs them. Tell them today we save France. The orders ripple through the column. 5,000 men who've already been marching since dawn, who are exhausted and thirsty, and footsore, are told they have to march back. Faster, in worse heat, toward a battle they know nothing about, and they don't mutiny, don't even complain much, because Desaix is asking, and they trust him, because the first consul needs them, and they're soldiers, because this is what they signed up for, even if they didn't know it at the time. They start marching. At 1:15, a galloper from Napoleon reaches Desaix. The rider is covered in dust, his horse lathered and blown. He almost falls from the saddle when he reaches Desaix's position. General Desaix, sir, message from the first consul. He hands over a folded paper, sealed with wax. Desaix breaks the seal, reads quickly. The message is brief, stark, almost desperate. Come immediately. We are under attack by entire Austrian army. Situation critical. Need you. Desaix looks at the messenger. When did you leave the battlefield? 2 hours ago, sir. Maybe a bit more. Around 11. How bad? The messenger, a young lieutenant, swallows hard. He's seen things today that he'll never be able to unsee. Bad, sir. Very bad. The Austrians hit us at dawn. We've been pushed back 3 miles, maybe more by now. General Victor's division is shattered. General Lannes is barely holding. The first consul... He trails off. What about the first consul? He looked scared, sir. I've never seen that before. Desaix absorbs this. Napoleon, scared. The man who crossed the bridge of Arcole under Austrian fire, who led charges at Rivoli, who never shows fear. How fast are you marching? The lieutenant asks. As fast as we can without killing everyone. Maybe 3 miles per hour. That means 2 more hours, sir. I don't know if... The lieutenant doesn't finish the sentence, but everyone understands. 2 more hours might be too late. The battle might be over. The army might be scattered. Napoleon might be captured or dead. Desaix turns to Boudet. Can we go faster? Sir, we're all ready. Can we go faster? Boudet looks at the men. They're already struggling. Some are staggering. But these are veterans. And if you tell veterans their general needs them, that their brothers in arms are dying, they'll find reserves they didn't know they had. We can try, sir. Desaix rides to the front of the column, addresses the men directly. It's unusual. Generals don't usually give speeches in the middle of a march. But Desaix isn't most generals. Soldiers, he shouts. His voice carries. General Bonaparte is fighting for his life 12 miles north of here. The Austrians surprised him. He's outnumbered, outgunned. He's been fighting since dawn, and if we don't get there soon, the battle will be lost. France will be lost. Everything we've fought for will be lost. He pauses. Let's that sink in. I know you're tired. I know it's hot. I know you want to rest. But our brothers are dying. Right now. And we're the only ones who can save them. So I'm asking you to do something extraordinary. I'm asking you to run. For collapse within the first mile, heat exhaustion, heart failure. They're left by the roadside with canteens of water and prayers. Most keep going. Officers run beside the men instead of riding. It's the only way to keep them going. If we run, you run. We're in this together. Desaix rides up and down the column, encouraging, inspiring, sometimes threatening. Faster! We're not there yet. They need us. At 2 o'clock, they can see smoke on the northern horizon, black and gray columns rising into the blue sky. That much smoke means a big battle, many guns, many casualties. 1 more hour, Desaix shouts. 1 more hour and we're there. The men run faster. At 2:30, they start to encounter the aftermath of battle. Wounded French soldiers stumbling south away from the fighting. They stare at Desaix's column with hollow eyes. Some cheer weakly, others just watch silently, too exhausted or traumatized to care. Desaix stops one, a corporal from Victor's division. "What's happening?" "We're finished, sir," the corporal says. Blood runs down his face from a scalp wound. "The whole army's running. The Austrians have won." "Not yet they haven't," Desaix says grimly. He rides on. More and more refugees from the battle. Wounded, shell-shocked. Some throwing away their weapons as they run. It's a bad sign. A terrible sign. But Desaix doesn't let his men see his worry. "Keep moving. Don't look at them. Eyes front." At 3 o'clock, they can hear individual artillery pieces. Not just a distant rumble, but distinct booms. That close. Maybe 3 miles, maybe less. And then, ahead, emerging from the dust and smoke, a rider on a blown horse, wearing the uniform of Napoleon's personal escort. It's a staff officer. He rides straight to Desaix. "General Desaix, thank God." The first consul asks how long until you arrive. 30 minutes, maybe less. "What's the situation?" The officer's face tells the story before his words do. "We're forming a last line at San Giuliano. If that breaks, we're done." The first consul says, he pauses, swallows. He says, "You're our only hope." No pressure, then. Desaix looks back at his men. They're dead on their feet. They've been marching and running for 5 hours in brutal heat. They should be useless, spent, unable to fight. But they're still moving, still together, still soldiers. "Tell the first consul," Desaix says quietly, "that we'll be there. And when we arrive, we'll attack immediately. No rest, no reorganization. We'll march, straight into battle." The officer nods and rides off. Boudet looks at Desaix. "Sir, the men need at least a few minutes to—" "The men need to save France," Desaix interrupts. "We'll rest when it's over." They march on, toward the sound of guns, toward Napoleon, toward destiny. At 3 o'clock, the Austrian pursuit reaches San Giuliano. General Zach has 15,000 relatively fresh troops. The French have maybe 12,000 men still in fighting condition, exhausted, demoralized, nearly out of ammunition. Napoleon tries to rally them. "One more stand, men, just one more." But he can see it in their eyes. They're done. They've been fighting for 7 hours in killing heat. They've been pushed back 3 miles. They've lost a third of their comrades. They've had enough. And then, someone shouts, "Column approaching from the south!" Every eye turns. Through the dust and smoke, a column of infantry appears, marching in perfect formation. 5,000 men, flags flying. At their head, mounted on a white horse, is General Louis Desaix. Napoleon rides forward to meet him. The two generals clasp hands. "What time is it?" Desaix asks. 3 o'clock, Napoleon replies. Desaix looks at the battlefield, the retreating French, the advancing Austrians, the chaos. He understands everything instantly. "This battle is lost," he says calmly, "but there is time to win another." It's one of the most famous quotes in military history, and in the next 90 minutes, Desaix will prove it true. Napoleon's energy returns. With Desaix's fresh troops, he has a chance. Not a good chance, but a chance. He issues rapid orders. Desaix will advance on the Austrian center. Kellermann's son, commanding what's left of the cavalry, will position for a flank attack. Victor and Lannes will reform their divisions and support. It's a desperate plan. One final throw of the dice. Desaix doesn't waste time. He forms his division into attack columns, tells his men the situation plainly. "We've been fighting all morning. The general has been fighting all day. Now it's our turn. One attack. Everything we have." At 4 o'clock, Desaix gives the order. "Forward!" 5,000 men begin to march, straight into the Austrian center. No elaborate tactics, no clever maneuvers, just a direct, brutal assault. The Austrians, confident in their victory, are surprised. Some units are already celebrating, looting French baggage wagons, taking prisoners back to the rear. Desaix's column crashes into them like a sledgehammer. The fighting is savage. Point-blank musket volleys, bayonet charges, hand-to-hand combat in the smoke. Desaix is everywhere, on his white horse, directing his men, inspiring them. The Austrian advance stops. For the first time all day, they're not moving forward. But they're not breaking either. They're too strong, too many. General Zach commits his reserves. Fresh battalions surround Desaix's division on 3 sides, and then, at 4:30, disaster. General Desaix, leading from the front as always, is hit. A musket ball strikes him in the chest. He falls from his horse. His men carry him to the rear. He's still conscious, bleeding heavily. "Go back!" he gasps to his aide-de-camp. "Don't tell the men I'm dying. Tell them I'm fine. Tell them to win." 3 minutes later, Louis Desaix is dead. He's 31 years old. He survived Egypt, the pyramids, Syria, the desert. He came back to Italy to help his old friend. And now he's gone. News of Desaix's death spreads through the French ranks. But instead of breaking morale, it enrages them. These men loved Desaix. He was one of them, a soldier's general, a hero. Now he's dead, and someone will pay. We're reaching the most crucial moment of this story. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, now is the time, because I make videos like this every week, and you won't want to miss them. Now, let's see how this all ends. 4:45 in the afternoon. The Austrian center has stopped advancing, but they're holding firm. General Zach is confident. Desaix's attack, though brave, has failed. The man himself is dead. In a few minutes, Zach will order a final push and break the French completely. But Zach has made a critical mistake. In the confusion of the fighting, his troops have become compressed. Units are mixed together. Cavalry, infantry, artillery, all bunched up on a narrow front. And they're about to pay for it. Young General General Kellermann, son of the famous marshal, commands what's left of the French heavy cavalry, about 400 men. They've been waiting on the flank, hidden behind a farmhouse. Kellermann sees the Austrian formation, packed tight, disorganized, celebrating their victory. Officers dismounted, men looting. It's the opportunity of a lifetime. Without waiting for orders, Kellermann draws his saber. "Heavy cavalry! With me!" 400 horsemen charge out from behind the farm. They hit the Austrian flank like a cannonball. The Austrians never see it coming. One moment they're standing in formation. The next, French cavalry is among them. Sabers flashing, horses trampling, screaming. Panic spreads instantly. Austrian units break and run. Others try to form square, but it's too late. The cavalry is already through their lines. And then, in the chaos, something happens that will change everything. An ammunition caisson, an Austrian artillery wagon carrying gunpowder and shells, is struck by a stray musket ball. It explodes. The blast is enormous, a fireball 50 feet high. The shockwave knocks men off their feet 100 yards away. Dozens of Austrians are killed instantly. Hundreds more are wounded. But worse than the casualties is the psychological effect. The Austrian soldiers, already shaken by the sudden cavalry charge, now believe the French have brought up secret artillery, or that God himself is against them. The center of the Austrian army begins to collapse. General Zach tries desperately to restore order. "Hold your positions, reform! We're winning!" But it's too late. Panic is contagious. Units that have been fighting bravely all day suddenly break. Men throw down their weapons and run. Within 10 minutes, the Austrian advance has become a rout. Napoleon, seeing the breakthrough, commits everything. "Everyone forward, now!" The entire French army, which was retreating in panic just an hour ago, now surges forward. Victor's battered division, Land's exhausted men, the remnants of the morning's fight. They all attack. The Austrians try to retreat in order, but the roads are clogged, units are mixed. Commanders have lost control. The retreat becomes a stampede. By 6 o'clock, the Austrian army is in full flight back toward Alessandria. They've lost 9,000 men killed, wounded, or captured, including General Desaix himself, who is taken prisoner still trying to rally his men. The French have lost 6,000, including the irreplaceable General Desaix, but they've won, against all odds, from the jaws of defeat. Napoleon stands on the Seb battlefield as the sun sets. Around him, exhausted soldiers cheer, "Vive Bonaparte! Vive la France!" But Napoleon isn't celebrating. He's staring south toward where Desaix fell. "What a loss," he says quietly. "What a terrible loss." June 16th, morning. General Melas rides out from Alessandria under a flag of truce. The 71-year-old commander is a broken man. Yesterday morning, he was writing victory dispatches. Now he's asking for terms. Napoleon receives him with careful respect. He knows this is the moment to be generous, to turn military victory into political triumph. The Convention of Alessandria is signed that afternoon. Austria will evacuate all of Lombardy and Piedmont, retreating behind the Mincio River, effectively surrendering northern Italy to France. In exchange, Napoleon allows the Austrian army to march out with honor, flags flying, weapons carried. It's a brilliant political move. Melas returns to Vienna and recommends peace negotiations. The Second Coalition, already weakened by Russia's withdrawal, begins to crumble. By the end of 1800, Austria will sign the Treaty of Lunéville, confirming French dominance of Italy and recognizing the Rhine as France's eastern border. The victory at Marengo doesn't just save Napoleon's military reputation. It transforms his political position. When he returns to Paris, he's no longer just first consul. He's the savior of France, the man who snatched victory from defeat. Within 2 years, he'll be consul for life. 2 years. After that, emperor. But none of that would have been possible without June 15th, 1800, without Desaix's desperate march, without Kellermann's charge, without that exploding ammunition caisson, without 2 hours that changed everything. General Louis Desaix was buried with full military honors in Milan. Napoleon attended the funeral personally. He was devastated. Desaix was more than a brilliant general. He was a friend, a man Napoleon could trust completely. There's a famous story, probably apocryphal, that Napoleon said, "I would give all my victories to have Desaix back." Whether he actually said it or not, the sentiment was real. In his later years on St. Helena, Napoleon would list Desaix among the 3 greatest generals he ever knew, along with Lannes and Massena. Young Kellermann, whose charge saved the battle, became a marshal of the empire. He served Napoleon for another 15 years. But he never achieved anything as glorious as those 5 minutes at Marengo. Ironically, his father, the old Marshal Kellermann, is much more famous. It was the father who won the Battle of Valmy in 1792, saving the French Revolution. But the son had his moment too, at Marengo, when it mattered most. Today, more than 220 years later, the Battle of Marengo remains one of the most studied battles in military history. Not because of brilliant tactics, but because of its raw drama, its impossible turnaround, its sheer improbability. Military historians debate endlessly. What if Desaix had arrived an hour later? What if the ammunition caisson hadn't exploded? What if Melas had stayed on the battlefield instead of riding back to Alessandria? Any of those changes, and Napoleon loses, captured or killed. The consulate falls. France, exhausted and bankrupt, sues for peace. The entire course of European history changes. But Desaix did arrive. The caisson did explode. Melas did leave, and Napoleon won. By the narrowest of margins, in the most dramatic way possible. There's also controversy about Napoleon's official account of the battle. The bulletins he published in French newspapers told a very different story. In his version, he was never in danger. He deliberately drew the Austrians into a trap. Desaix's arrival was all part of the plan. It was propaganda, and obvious propaganda. Everyone who fought at Marengo knew the truth. But Napoleon controlled the narrative, and for years his version was the one that appeared in history books. Only later, when veterans published their memoirs, did the real story emerge. The mistakes, the panic, the near disaster, the luck. But in some ways, that makes the victory even more impressive. Not because Napoleon was a genius who planned everything perfectly, but because he and his army were able to recover from catastrophic errors, to keep fighting when everything seemed lost, to turn defeat into triumph through sheer determination and courage. That's the real lesson of Marengo. Not perfect planning, not brilliant tactics, but resilience. The refusal to give up, the ability to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, and the sacrifice of men like Desaix, who marched toward the sound of guns, who led from the front, who gave everything for their country and their friend. This was the story of the Battle of Marengo, a story of desperation and triumph, of mistakes and miracles, of one man who died in victory and another who built an empire on that sacrifice. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Leave in the comments. Do you think Napoleon was lucky or brilliant at Marengo? I want to know what you think. Next week, I'll tell the story of Nelson's greatest victory, Trafalgar. It's even more dramatic than this one. Until then, some battles echo forever.